Well, hello! Happy 4th of July, those celebrating. Man plans and God laughs. That's, oh my word, today. Here we are, a little late. I do apologise, and I'm going to share this on other pages. So just bear with me while I mess about for a moment. We've got Allan Kleynhans here with us today. If I can actually get it together, forgive me. It's 4th of July and there's a parade in my town, and I was so taken with it that I forgot the time. I'm so sorry, forgive me. I was like a kid in a candy store watching all the people. So here we are, and we're just going to talk. Allan and I were going to hook up and just speak. He's a transformational speaker, humanitarian. I'm sure you saw the post that went large, let's say, or if not, I'm sure you know him. He's an incredible man and a delight, and so embracing of other people. So please use us to be yourselves. If you can hang about, more's the better, as they say. Thank you very much. It's got Coronado on. It's got the bridge on, my town. Happy 4th. So here he is. Use us. What an gentleman in every meaning of that word. Yay! So he's coming. Use us. We'll just be here and chat and see what happens, basically. Hello.
Hello.
Hello from Tunbridge Wells to California. Is that right? Is that where you are?
From Greater London.
Greater London. Oh my word. This is beautiful, and thank you for your patience, truly. Allan, when I'm around lots of people, I lose it a little bit. It was just beautiful watching the parade today. Happy 4th.
I'm sure it must have been awesome. May the 4th be with you.
Thank you. Tell us this. For those, I doubt there's people that don't know you, but if there is, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, how we know each other, anything that comes to mind.
Well, how we know each other is we met. I think we met through JP actually the first time.
Yes.
And then we became friends online, and then I bumped into you at UPW. I think I didn't see you before. I didn't see you between the time we met at JP's event and until I saw you at UPW a long time after that actually, and then we've just really chatted online, and we've been friendly online. And then actually I didn't even know that you went to America, and I must say you look like a real Yank
Thank you.
with those colors, and you look very well, my dear. Your hair is very nice. I haven't seen you for a long time. Your hair is looking lovely.
Thank you. My mother's family are American.
There's something about, living in sunny climes that makes a big difference, isn't it?
Well, that's what it was, Allan, honestly. Look at me. I got makeup and everything. Welcome to the human race, as they say. Well, I coach as well. And I was in London going, this is incredible, but there's no sun, and I want the sun. So I'm going to walk my talk. And it was JP, actually, Jean-Pierre de Villiers, a friend of ours, who was coaching me at the time, and he gave me a push. Essentially, he said, you've been talking about this for 18 months. If you don't book your flight by the end of the day, I'm no longer your coach.
Oh, really? Wow, that's putting it out there.
I know. I was like, yay, okay. In fact, he and one of the ladies that works for me know one another, and he said, I'm ringing her now to tell her to book your flight and make sure it happens, just in case you want to be a child about it and mess it up. We're going to actually have somebody that has a brain help you out. So it was amazing.
Very cool. How long have you been there now?
18 months.
Wow, as long as that, eh? Gee whiz.
Yes.
Fantastic. So you must be really sort of acclimatized now, and you're really settled in. So where are you living exactly?
So I'm in Coronado.
Coronado. And where is that's in California, right?
Yes. So it's
where in relation to San Diego and Los Angeles, where is it?
So it's San Diego is literally across the water, but sort of 15 minutes ride on the ferry. You can see it right front and center, really close. It's our nearest neighbor. So we're a city, Coronado, very small one.
All right.
And incredible.
I'm going to be in San Diego at the end of the month.
I know you are. We're going to
Yeah.
see one another, aren't we?
I hope so.
Yes. Let's make it work. I'll come
I hope
find
so.
you. You're really close. It takes me 15 minutes to get there.
All right,
So
perfect. Well, I'll just tell my host that I definitely want to make it. I want to visit. I want to come to Coronado.
Yes, you love it here. Tell us what you're doing in San Diego. What is taking you over here?
Well, for the first time, I'm very, very excited. For the first time, I'm going to be taking part in Tony Robbins' Global Youth Leadership Summit. And when I say taking part, I'll be one of the trainers that will be helping to manage the event for about 600 teenagers between the age of 13 to 17 that will be coming from a variety of different backgrounds and a variety of locations. And
Wow.
It's an event that's been running for many, many years, and I've never, ever been able to fit it into my calendar or never had the time. It's always been the wrong timing for me. And this year, at the beginning of this year, I put it in my calendar. I thought this is a must for me this year. I definitely want to do it. And yeah, I'm very excited about it. I'm going to be seeing some good friends out there that'll be on the event with me. And also I'll be meeting some amazing young people, I'm sure, because this event attracts teenagers from many different types of backgrounds, ones who come from great families, ones who come from families that are really, really struggling, and ones that come from, virtually no family, so it's going to be very interesting. And I've heard it's such an amazing event, so it's about helping to create the next generation of leaders, really, so it's really awesome.
Will it be fully booked, do you think, at this point? If people are listening going, oh my God, do you think it's fully booked? We don't know. Look online, I suppose.
I'm not sure, actually, but if anyone is interested, they should go to Tony Robbins Foundation website, Anthony Robbins Foundation website, and they can have a look at it. They'll find it there. And if there is spaces available, there's an application that and kids have to have there's an application process where they have to have done some kind of community service, so for kids here in the UK, that would be something like the Duke of the Duke of Ellington, or what is it called?
Edinburgh, award.
Yeah, something like that. And but it's a great program, obviously, and it's I've heard so many great things about it over the years, so I'm super excited about it. It's going to be a highlight for me this year, I reckon.
Yeah. And you're speaking at the event?
No. I'll just be running one of the teams.
Right.
And my team's name is Love Wins. Yeah. And isn't that amazing, right? Because just today I got an email from Robbins Research, and they said to me, Allan, what team would you like to choose for? What name would you like to choose for your team? And I was thinking initially they asked me to choose my own team and to think of a they have temporary tattoos, right? And they get bandanas. And so, I thought of Ubuntu, right, from South Africa, right, which is sense of community, Ubuntu, and the logo for Ubuntu is 4 hands, each gripping each wrist, forming almost like a square of hands. And but unfortunately, for some reason, that didn't really work out. I couldn't find it just didn't work out. I don't know, I'm not sure why, but anyway, so I got this email today, and I'd forgotten about that. And they said, Allan, what team name would you like to choose? And then they gave me these options, and one of them was Team Love Wins. I said, I'll have that one, baby.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. So I'm excited about that. Yeah.
Incredible. So I saw Allan speak. Does anybody put a 2 in the box if you know Allan, your friends, or you've seen him speak? I mean, it was phenomenal. When we first met, it was at JP's speaking event, and you were doing the wooden. Can you talk us through that? Because it was like, I had 16 clients in the room there. You worked there. And I
didn't know that you had 16, but I remember you had. I didn't know you had 16, but I do remember that you had those 2 ladies that I actually bumped into at UPW the year after that, I think. I don't know if it was at the same year with you, but I did remember bumping into them. Do you remember those 2 ladies, older ladies? The one was very challenged. She couldn't put her hand through the board. Do you remember that? That is
Kathryn Mixon.
Kathryn, that's right. Yes.
74 now, year-old lady. She was my psychoanalyst.
Kathy, yes.
Nearly 20 years ago. And I
Wow.
took her to UPW, and she's become a friend of mine since then. About 15 years later, we made friends and were kind of buddies.
Fantastic.
But yeah, I was kind of mum that day, so I stayed back and messed around with Carl Whitfield. We were just messing at the back of the room, sort of being mums and dads, and you were working. Tell us about it, because it was people, it was just transformative for so many of them in that room.
Yeah, it was really great. I mean, I'm sure most of the people, if not all of them who are watching this are familiar with the board break, or maybe they've done it. But it's just a great exercise. It's a great metaphor, just like a firewalk, you know, when you put your hand through a piece of wood, you know, martial arts style. But for somebody who's never done that before, you know, the idea of putting their hand through a piece of board, especially an elderly lady or a young female, or, you know, and it's not about being female or anything, but it just, you know, it's not something that your average female would think about putting their hand through a board. But I always love doing that, especially when I've done it for lots of kids, lots of teenagers. I've done that at schools. And it's always amazing to see young girls step up, and then, you know, when they put their hand through the board, you know, you see their face just has there's just a shift in their face, you know, and you can see what's happening inside their mind. They think, oh my God, I've just put my hand through a piece of wood, you know, and it's like it's a metaphor for breaking through anything that's stopping us, you know, psychologically, or our self-imposed limitations. And so it was really great to do that exercise. And then it's really about belief, really. It comes down to belief, because it's our beliefs that stop us from doing anything, our limiting beliefs. You know, we have positive beliefs and we have negative beliefs, but all beliefs carry consequences, whether they're positive or negative. So it's about being aware of that. And then that metaphor is it's an extremely powerful metaphor, just like the firewalk, isn't it? Or an arrow break, or anything like that, really.
It was so powerful. My hair's standing on end with somebody in the room, and you were so tender with this person. So find yourself in this story, people. One lady, really nervous to do it, to be breaking a board, and I can't, and all this stuff, and I'm not strong enough, and what if I look silly? And of course, life being the gift that it is, the blessing and the lesson, she was the one person that kept going, and it just wouldn't break. And so people were breaking their boards and finishing, and then filming and taking photos. So there was more and more attention on her. And the starting point, of course, was shame, don't see me. So it was the whole room in the end. And you were so patient and so tender. And there was so many moments where she was like, no, I won't do it this time, you know, kind of thing, give up. And we were like, no. And you stayed with her, so attentive. And you know how we go to shame is, oh, I'm the one that can't do it, kind of thing. And you stayed with her, and I mean, we don't know each other terrifically well, but you sort of positioned yourself, you know, when you meet the person as they are, because you're a character, right? You're a powerful character. And you met her at her level of where she was emotionally, and you were just tender and stayed with it. And she did it in front of everybody. And it was like her worst fear and her greatest, you know, accomplishment all in one. So she was 70 that year. So she would have been 70. And she's there, you know, with this whole group going, yeah, you can do it. You can. And she busted through. Incredible.
Yeah, I do remember that she was, I didn't really think about her age, but I do remember that she was elderly. And, but I do remember when I bumped into her at UPW, and she said to me, she said, I remember breaking my board with you. And, you know, it's just amazing. That kind of thing sticks with people especially like you say, as they go through a process like that, and they can't do it, or they think they can't do it. And then eventually everyone's eyes are on them, and they're feeling really, you know, inhibited. And then when they do it, it's just a massive shift, isn't it?
Yeah. And she did great, because she had, you know, we have these stories. She had every reason to give up, because she tried. And she stayed with it, and it was like really confronting to have eyes on her when she's the one that can't do it. And the whole room was with her by the end. It was just amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Really, really powerful.
Mm.
So
you're looking very well. I must say, you look very well. That the climate there is obviously agreeing with you. Your hair looks fantastic. You know, you look good.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is getting out of our own way. Honestly, I mean, the sun does hide a multitude of sins, it's got to be said, but it is equally not going the easy route. We were talking about this. I have a morning show, Mastery Mornings. We were talking about this morning. I was sitting waiting to go live and thought, I don't really have anything to say. And my little sort of subconscious went, you do. it's a challenging one, and it's about really calling it and, you know, doing the hard stuff rather than what's easy. You know, when we say, oh, I don't have enough money to move out, or I was telling people about a woman I'd met who's having quite a challenge in her relationship, and it was hard to leave, so she's going to stay, as opposed to the massive leap. That's the scary thing, you know, the big impossible thing, because I'm not bright enough, clever enough, rich enough, whatever enough thing. So that was the topic today, and that's essentially what I did in coming to America. Is you know, it got out of my own way to say, if I'm going to be actually doing this thing that we do, is to love on people, to be the best of ourselves and encourage people to do the same. I can't be sitting in England bitching and moaning because I'm cold. You know, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, very true.
So,
and you know, it's funny because we're having such great weather here lately. You can see I've got a nice little bit of a tan, and
yes,
I'm lucky. I tan very quickly. I'm lucky, but it's been very warm here. Nothing that, I mean, I suppose I'm very used to it, you know, growing up in South Africa, but it's amazing because when there's no sun, people are complaining about the winter, and then when the sun eventually comes and we're having such great weather, people now say it's too hot, you know, and you hear people complaining on the radio, on TV, just, you know, generally, you know, oh my God, it's so hot. You know, you can't make people happy, can you?
Really, really, really. It reminds me of the story that Tony Robbins, he tells about, you know, talking to God. If we were to talk to God, you know, some people may say, oh, you know, why do you make it like this? And people are like this, and complain. And then, you know, depending on a different kind of mindset or personality or energy state, to say, oh my God, there are these ants, and they're, you know, powerful little buggers, and they pinch you, and they're this big, and comparatively they should be pathetic creatures, and they've got fight and might. And, you know, it depends on our state of mind, really, where we are, obviously, how we
absolutely
respond to things. So one of the things that I love about you is your truth and your preparedness to talk about real connect. And obviously, you know, a lot of Allan's lives go, you know, postal, for want of a better term, because there's an attentiveness. You remind me of, I don't want to give the punchline away, but I went to Date with Destiny a few years back when I came here. Have you been?
Yeah.
So there's a bit in it, and I don't want to give it away because people that haven't been don't know about it, but where Tony works with the men in the room and the men stand spontaneously, was the most powerful experience of my entire life. And one of the things, I am a real advocate for men being whatever the F they want to be, because in our culture, you know, we push each other around, and, you know, projection and objectifying of men and so on. So I work with a lot of men, and I'm really for men and the kind of role dynamic, the shift that we have, where women sometimes can be fiercely independent, which is beautiful, and then men can get pacified. And so we talk to that a lot. And one of the things I love about our groups that we have online is many men speak and so on. And one of the things that I so admire in you is when you talk from the heart, and you are as you are. And I have the same experience with you as many men that I respect and know, which is you're more attractive and powerful and courageous and sort of masculine, in my view, when you own all parts of you, which is not just the brute force and, you know, cognitive ability and the can-do attitude, but the tenderness and the courage and vulnerability that comes with that. And I love that. When I see you live, I think it's so encouraging for men and women to see that men can be just as they are, unapologetically so, and that can involve tenderness and vulnerability and power within that. So
thank you, I appreciate that.
Fantastic.
Thank you, thanks. Yeah, it's I think it's you know, growing up in South Africa, you're not encouraged to do that as a youngster, you know, it's frowned upon, etc. But it's something that I think is definitely it's allowed me to find a real peace inside myself, you know, just to really be okay with how I feel rather than hiding my feelings, you know, like I used to always hide my feelings. But then you just end up burying that kind of stuff, you know, and then it manifests in other ways, you know, and manifests in ill health or disease or, you know, or headaches or migraines or whatever. And so it's something that I do. I think it really, it's just, I got to the point where I just really stopped caring about what people thought, you know, and it's a real freedom that, you know, it's the greatest freedom, I think, you know, when you can liberate yourself from that fear of other people's opinion, you know, and I had that fear for a long time, you know, and it's just, and then I'm glad I just was able to kind of, and it wasn't a case of just it happened one day. It was just gradually, I gradually worked my way towards that, you know, and I just think that, you know, it's about being authentic, you know, and the more time I spend on stage and the more time I spend in front of people, whether it's one-on-one or one-to-many, the more important and the more crucial, I think is the word probably, that I realize it's so important and crucial for people just to be true to themselves and true to how they feel, because this is what makes people ill, you know, and this is what makes people do terrible things like you are seeing in your town, and it's not. And this is happening, you know, more and more around the world. You know, people just they don't feel free to express how they feel, because they're so afraid of being ridiculed or humiliated, or, you know, or just not looking brave or not looking strong. And it's so unnecessary, you know, because vulnerability is strength, you know, and it doesn't mean that you are weak. It just means that you're sensitive, and sensitive is important because it means you sense. You know, sensitive is just a case of being sensing. You know, it's sensing, isn't it? You're in touch with your senses, you know, and then you can be in touch with other people's senses, you know. So it's very important to be able to do that, because then you can really connect with people. And I think that's the most important thing that people are missing in the world today is connection, real deep connection. And you know, my friend Tony Salimi talks about loneliness. He wrote a book on loneliness, and I think it's true what he says. It's a disease. People are alone. They're so alone. They're so lonely. And what's worse is they're lonely even in the midst of their family and friends. They're still lonely. And that's I mean, there's not even a word to describe how terrible that is. You know, that's just like shameful. It's disgusting. You know what I mean? It's just like terrible. People should be, you know, Robin Williams said this. Robin Williams, that's one of the quotes that he keeps getting quoted by Robin Williams. He said, you know, there's nothing worse than being lonely when you're in the midst of people that you know and care about. You know, and that's what, so connection is important. And then, you know, it's that for me, that's always been important, because I always craved that as a kid. I craved that kind of connection, and I never got it, you know, and I had to develop a false sense of identity where I became funny just so that I could be accepted, you know. So I became the clown, you know. I became the class clown, you know. I became the funny guy, you know, and I was always cracking jokes in that, because then it made me feel accepted and connected to other people. But really, you know, I didn't want to be funny, you know. I just wanted to be me, you know. Of course, there's nothing wrong with a bit of humor there and there, but if you're using humor all the time in a false way, just because you're looking, you know, it's covering something up, isn't it? And I definitely was for a long time. I remember I came home once from London, and I had been away a long time, and I hadn't seen my friends, and I'd just been through a lot of landmark work at the time, and I got back to Durban, and my friends hadn't seen me for a long time, and they said, hey, tell us a joke, you know what I mean? And they said, hey, you know, and I said, no, I don't do that anymore. They said, hey, you know, make us laugh. And I said, no, I don't need to do that anymore, you know. And they had to get used to relating to this new person, this new me, you know, because I wasn't, you know, I wasn't that person anymore. And it's just, it's that connection is what people are really craving, you know, that deep connection. And with, you know, it's great to have social media, it's great to have Facebook, because you can connect with people online and that. But what I love about Facebook personally is that when you connect with someone online, you can really, when you meet them face to face, eventually it feels like you already have that connection, and the ice is broken already, you know, that. And but there's nothing more important than that connection, that deep connection, which is that. And you mentioned that that video when we spoke earlier, that one that went, I don't know, it's got, I mean, it's so many views, 25,000 or something like that in the space of 5 weeks or something. That was the one of me and the old man.
gentleman in Knightsbridge?
Yeah, Mark, the guy was born in Palestine, in Knightsbridge, and that was so, that I can still remember how that felt, you know, connecting with that man, you know, and just listening to him, and just really hearing him and seeing him, you know, and what a beautiful connection it was, heart-to-heart connection, and how we both really connected with each other on a deep level. And it was only for 40 minutes, you know, but I like, you know, I really feel that perhaps, well, he made a massive difference to me, and hopefully that, you know, that really impacted him at the same kind of level. And that's what people are really looking for, aren't they?
big time. What was it that was so powerful for you about that exchange meeting, Mark? Mark, his name.
Yeah, his name was Mark. Yeah. I guess it was just that.
This was just a chance meeting, right?
Yeah. I just walked into a pret-a-manger across the road from Harrods. I was looking for a table to sit down and have a sandwich, and there were no tables available, so I sat down on a little stool against the wall, and I saw a table in the corner with this man sitting there, just him alone, and he only had a hot drink on his table. I thought, I wonder if I should ask him if he had the chairs taken. And I thought, no, I won't bother him. And then he got up, and he happened to get up and go to get a napkin, and came back past me and said, "Would you like to share my table, young man?" And I said, "I was just thinking about asking you the same thing, sir." So he said, "Come and sit with me." And I sat with him, and then I proceeded to just ask him, we just started chatting, and then I asked him, where he was from, and, and then he just started to tell me a bit about his life. And then the more he told me, the more I just asked him a few questions. Then he really just opened up, and I just sat there eating my lunch, and he told me all about his life. He's born in Palestine, and then how he had a really tough life, and he just, I cried, and when I listened to how much he had been through, and I asked him that I suggested he record his life, and he said he had written a book, but he hadn't published it because he was afraid of how it would land or how it would be received. And I said, you have to publish that book, and he named it Shalom, and so I said, you must publish that book. And then I made him promise me he would, and after 40 minutes or so, I left, and I gave him a hug, and I thanked him for being so open and honest. And he thanked me for listening, he thanked me for really being really attentive. He said, "Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for allowing me to share my story." And it was just an amazing moment. I gave him another hug, and it was just wonderful, And then when I left, I was walking away, and I was very present, and I've been practicing that, with people for a long time. But the more you practice it, the better it gets, I think. When you can really be present with someone and really look them in the eye, and don't allow yourself to be distracted, and really listen to them without wanting to say something in return, and when I walked away from that, being that exchange had really touched me at a really deep level. When I remember walking down Knightsbridge, and I was crying just with the happiness of it, just thinking, wow. And I was thanking the universe for that privilege of that moment, that privilege of that magic moment, and it was just a highlight for me, and I just had to share it, Well, I shared it with my friend when I got back to the park, and I was on my way back to the park, and I shared it with him, and then I shared it with someone else that evening, and then one of my friends, the friend I shared it with that evening, he suggested that I actually share that on Facebook because other people would like to hear about that, and I shared it, and then it just got, the response was incredible. I had people sending me messages from all over the world saying, "I've just watched this video. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's had an impact on my relationship with my family, and it's made me do this, and it's made me do that, and you've inspired me to do this and connect with this person, reconnect with this person." I was getting messages from New Zealand and, Eastern Europe and North America, Canada, all over the places. It was quite mad, actually. I was just thinking, it just shows you how, if you're willing to be authentic and vulnerable, how it can touch people, far and wide, even if you don't know them,
Yeah. And you were moved in the video, just talking about your experience with Mark, but you were moved to, he was crying in the video, so moved, so powerful. And thank you to, we know he's watching, the guy that said share the story live is watching now. So thank you so much for suggesting that. Tell the bit of the story, the heart to heart, when you give him a hug. That's so powerful. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do remember that. So what happened was, once, when I had to go because I was due, I had to be somewhere. If I hadn't had a prior arrangement with someone else, a good friend of mine, Brandon Block, I think you might know him. But if I hadn't had a prior arrangement with him, I would have stayed longer. And but I had to leave, and so when I grabbed his hand and I said, "Thank you so much for sharing your time with me, and thank you very much for sharing your life with me. You're telling me this wonderful, journey of your life. I really appreciate it." And then I said, I stood up, and I was still holding his hand. I stood up and I said, "Would you mind if I asked you to stand up so I can hug you?" And so he said, "Well, you want to hug me?" And he was very, and while he was telling his story, I remember he was like a little boy, you know what I mean? He was like 18, you could see he was elderly and had a lot of wisdom in his face, but his eyes were alive with a zest for life. And I remember when I asked him to stand up, he was surprised, and he stood up with this, you know, he was so like pleased, you know. And then I hugged him, and then when he stood up, he actually asked me, Poppy, he said, which side would you like to hug me? And I thought, wow, that's amazing. No one's ever asked me that. And so I said, I'd like to love you with the left side, so our hearts can connect. And so he said, oh, cool, I like that. So we hugged, and then like most people, once you've hugged them for 5 or so seconds, you know, they want to let go. So they start rubbing your back or patting you on the back. You know, it's like a unconscious signal, I've had enough. And I said to him, I said, just a little bit longer. Yeah. And I said, just hug me a little bit longer. Don't let go yet. And so he chuckled in my ear, and we hugged a little bit longer, you know. And then, and while I was hugging him, what I do when I hug people is I think of the figure 8, you know, the infinity sign. I think of golden light joining our hearts, right, in the infinity sign. And then while I was hugging him, I said, from my heart to your heart, I love you, and from your heart to my heart, thank you. And it was really beautiful, you know. And yeah, it was just a wonderful, wonderful moment. Yeah.
Now that is how to connect, my friends. That's what is a word for that? Good Lord, like there's a, you know, that's vulnerability in action, big time. Choice after choice after choice you made to say, would you mind if I hugged you? Would you mind if, you know, one? That's a pretty, you know, ballsy thing to ask, because of course he could say, who are you? No, you know, with shame and fear and all that's involved, and you kept going, pushing, heart, infinity, power. And I'm convinced, Allan, that that's what really got so many of us, is you as a man prepared to talk about an experience that you had where you, choice after choice after choice, went for vulnerability with a stranger who's a man, talked about it live, and were moved doing it and really connected, and people going, oh my God, I've got to reach out to somebody else too. Like thousands of us were doing it. Incredible. That is courage and vulnerability in action for me, in a massive way.
Yeah,
walk in his talk, I said.
Yeah, well, you know what it reminds me of? I mean, you know, now that I'm listening to you say that, I'm thinking, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, what is the process that created that? And it immediately what comes to mind is I think of 1999, you know, when I came back from Date with Destiny in Palm Springs, you know. And when I came back from Date with Destiny in Palm Springs in 99, I came back with a new incantation and a new identity. And my identity, you know when you're with the Triad, right? Tony's Triad. When you know that when I drew my Triad, my default home
just
before.
Say what that is, because some people don't know, Tony. Some people haven't been to the events.
Okay.
What's the Triad?
There's an alarm going off here somewhere. All right. A Triad is a triangle, obviously, and the base of the triangle is body language, physiology. The left side of the triangle is focus / beliefs, and the right side of the triangle is language / meaning. So these three areas, they create all behavior, and so each of these individual areas also has their own elements, let's say. So for instance, left side focus beliefs, focus is driven by the questions you ask yourself, etc. So you might be asking yourself on a daily basis, why does this happen to me? Or why does life suck? Or why is life so tough? Or why do people hate each other so much? Or why is there so much war in the world? Or why is the world so evil? That would definitely drive your focus. That would definitely affect what you believe, you know. And then all three of those are interacting with each other, affecting each other. On the right side, you got language and meaning. So depending on the language you use and the meaning you attach to experiences, also drives the way you feel. And then your body language, how you use your body on a daily basis, what you put into your body, etc. All three of those things combine to create an emotional home. And we all have an emotional home. And for me, most of my youth, most of my life, my emotional home was anger and frustration. But anger was the main one. And I was angry all the time. And my underlying limiting belief was that my life sucked, you know, and I didn't have anything going for me. And my language was always in my head, especially to myself, was negative. And the meaning I attached to everything was, why do things keep going wrong? You know, why does this keep happening? And my primary question was, what the fuck is wrong with me? That was my primary question. And I used to ask that question a lot when I was frustrated and angry and stressed. You know, what the fuck is wrong with me? How come this always goes wrong? Why do I'm always fucking up, you know? And so I was always
attack, right?
Say again.
Shame and attack, because when you say negative, I'm guessing you mean I was pretty sadistic in my head to myself. You were bullied.
Oh yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so I was angry all the time. And so when I came back from Date with Destiny, my new identity was I am love, you know. And so I drew the triangle. I put love in the middle. I said, you know, what do I have to focus on a daily basis? What do I have to believe on a daily basis? What kind of questions do I have to ask myself on a daily basis, unconsciously and consciously, you know, in my head and out loud, to feel love? And the same thing with language. What language do I have to use on a daily basis, moment to moment? What meaning must I attach to everything in order to feel love, and to really feel it? You know, not just express it, or just like really feel it. And and then, you know, how do I have to use my body, treat my body, put into my body, etc., in order to feel love? And I just came up with all these little habits and these little patterns and these little disciplines and little, you know, methods, you know, that would allow me to feel love. And I would ask myself, is this going to make me feel more love or less love? You know, and so I program myself, and I walk around all the time saying, I'm love, I'm love, I'm love, I'm love, I'm love, I'm love, I am love, I'm loving, I'm loving, I'm loved, I love, you know. And there was a time when I was introducing myself as love. Whenever I went out and about, people say, and at networking events, they'd say, you know, I'd walk up to people and they say, hi, my name's Tom. I'd say, hi, my name's Love. I'm Love, you know. And it would make people laugh in that, but it would definitely open a conversation, you know. And I would say, I'm only kidding. My name's really Allan, but I'm identifying myself as love because I know that I need more love. I know I need love. I know I need to feel love, and I know that I can't get it from anywhere else unless I actually practice it myself. And so now it's like, you know, it's 19 years later now, and this is something I've been practicing, like, you know, for 19 years. So and so what I was saying to you, when I'm standing on stage, and that the more time I spend in front of people, the more important I think, or the more I see that authenticity is the real thing that's going to set people free. If people can be authentic with their feelings, and really at the end of the day, all of us are love, and we all at our essence are love, and that's the thing that we crave the most, and it's the thing that we don't give enough of to other people that we care about, the thing that we stingy with all the time, because we want to be right all the time, and we want to be safe, and we don't like being humiliated, or we don't like being vulnerable. But if you can just practice being loving, you know, more loving, we can all be more loving every day. Every day we can all be more loving. Even me, I can be more loving. You know, everybody can be more loving, you know, and all it takes is being kindness, or being kind, because kind is the one thing we all have in common. That's the one thing we all have in common, is being kind. You know, we can all agree on that. We can all agree on that. It doesn't matter where we come from, Muslim, Christian, Catholic, Protestant, you know, it doesn't matter where we come from, black, white, red, Indian, Chinese, what, it doesn't matter. Everybody agrees that being kind is a very important thing for everybody. My father used to teach me that my father taught me that when I was a kid. When I was young, he used to say, Allan, there's only 3 rules in life, and if you live by these 3 rules, then life will be good to you. He said, rule number 1, be kind. Rule number 2, be kind. Rule number 3, be kind. And I'll never forget that. And but it took me a long time to get to this place where I can practice it so openly, and it's become just normal for me, you know. So, and obviously it doesn't make me a saint. I traveled to Romania on Friday to speak in Romania, in Bucharest. And on Friday, I didn't have such a good trip on the way there. And I got a bit irritated at the airport, etc. I got a little bit triggered, etc. So I'm not a saint, definitely, by no means. But
good.
When
Saints
that happens,
are lonely. It's a lonely place up there.
True, and they often become martyrs. So, but the thing is, though, is that you know, what I am very good at, and what I've mastered, is I'm very, very good at getting back to love from if I spend time in anger, and I don't spend a lot of time there anymore. I spend very little time there, and it takes a lot to really trip me up. But if I get tripped up, I'm very quick to catch myself and say, Allan, what's triggering me? Why am I triggered? What's really going on? What do I need to heal inside myself right now? And then I get back to love, you know. And then it's because it's the best place to be. And it's where you feel the best. It's where you feel the most centered, most grounded, most peaceful, most connected. And that's where you see innocence. That's where you see grace. That's where you see all the goodness and everything, you know, when you come from that place. And then life is really awesome, you know. It's really awesome from that place. Everything works out from that place. Everything seems to work out. And if you set back, or if you upset about something, then what you do from that place, you tend to see something that most people don't see. You tend to see the relationship between chaos and opportunity. you tend to see, you tend to see the joy in pain, or the happiness in sorrow, or the gift in anxiety, or the gift in adversity. You tend to see that because you have an elevated consciousness when you're living from a place of love.
Yeah, I've got Oprah Winfrey in my ear, channeling her. Say, find your flow. I hear her saying that. Do you have an example of a time where you've switched it? You've been able to shift from being angry or being triggered? Like, I appreciate you just said this, but I know that so many of us, we get taken off.
A proper example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
of a
sure.
process that you took yourself through.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. I mean, just on Friday, I can give you a couple. On Friday, what happened on Friday is that I forgot to check myself in, and only because I usually get checked in by whoever's hosting me or promoting me or flying me out to their country, and I wasn't checked in, and I forgot about it, and I've had so many things going on that I forgot to check myself in. And then when I got to the airport, this particular airline that we were flying with, and we were flying to Bucharest, so it was we're flying on Wizz Airlines, so they charge you if you check in at the airport, and so they charged me £64 to check me in, and I said to the person who was checking me in, I said, gosh, I'm gonna frame this boarding card because this is £64, this piece of paper. I'm gonna frame it. And I was like really triggered by the fact that I'd been paying £64 for this piece of paper. And it wasn't about the money. It was just the fact that I forgot, and the fact that I was, 60, I just thought, what a waste of money, you know what I mean? And I was in my head about it for a while. And then I just, it was a good like 5 or 10 minutes, and and then I just said, Allan, what are you doing? You know what I mean? What are you doing right now? You're just giving yourself a hard time, and you're giving that person a hard time, and you just, you don't feel good right now. So, what do you need to do to shift it? And I just said, okay, what do I need to focus on right now in order to feel good again? And I just thought, well, let me just focus on what I can be grateful for right now. What can I appreciate right now? And then I thought, well, I can appreciate the fact I'm going to Bucharest, and I'm going to see, 600 people on Sunday, and I'm going to meet these amazing new people, and I'm going to make new friends. And I started to appreciate it. And then I also do Ho'oponopono, right? So I did some Ho'oponopono straight away with the other person that I was angry with, the service agent who I was felt maybe I was giving them a hard time, the manager that I had an argument with, and so I did some Ho'oponopono with them, right? Obviously, I wasn't near them at that point. By that point, I was already on my way to the gate, but I was thinking of them, and I could see their faces, and I was saying, please forgive me, I'm sorry, I love you, thank you, and then I released that angst, I released that sense of frustration, and I felt good again, within seconds, I let it go, it was gone. And I was back in the present.
Powerful. And again,
another
what
time,
a courageous act.
It happens so quickly too, without you even realizing it. People don't even realize how often we complain. And my favorite flavor of suffering was complaining. I was in a hotel in Portugal, in Lisbon, and I was speaking in Lisbon. And I went to have breakfast, and I asked for a cappuccino. This is when I was still drinking coffee. I asked for a cappuccino. And the person said, okay, that's cool, but you have to pay for the cappuccino. You can have coffee for free, but the cappuccino is extra. So I said, what do you mean? This is a Hilton hotel. I'm a guest, right? I don't have to pay for cappuccino. So he said, no, cappuccinos are extra money. So I said, no. I said, listen, I'm a guest here. You don't understand. I'm a guest. I'm not paying for a cappuccino. Just bring me one. I'm not paying for it. So he said, no, you can't have a cappuccino unless you pay for it. You can have normal coffee. So I got irritated, right? And I started complaining in my head. Wow. I was thinking, oh my God, why do I have to pay for a cappuccino? This is bullshit, man. You know what I mean? I'm a guest here. And as I was doing that, it was probably about a minute, right? 60 seconds. I thought, what am I doing? And then I thought, what can I be grateful for right now? And then as I said that, my eyes landed on the peppermint tea, and I said, the universe wants me to be healthy, and I'll have a peppermint tea. And I just started laughing out loud when I did that, right? I laughed out loud when I did it. I thought, my gosh, and then, and immediately, that just breaks the pattern, right? It interrupts the pattern. I've got so many examples like that. I use these examples on stage all the time with people currently, I tell that story in Bucharest, what happened to me on Friday. I told people I got frustrated on Friday because this and this happened. But when you practice this all the time, or when you're aware of it, when you're conscious, then you can catch yourself quickly. You can get off it quickly, and you don't want to spend time in those emotions. You want to spend time feeling happy, feeling joyful, feeling peaceful and loving. You know what I mean? That's where you want to spend time, because then you can be kind to people. Then it's easy to be kind to people. It's difficult to be kind to people when you're pissed off and frustrated because you're triggered, right?
Absolutely. And I think many of us get triggered in those scenarios because actually what's going on is you don't see me, appreciate me, hear me, love me, care for me, and we're triggered because you know we've had that, right? What, you're going to charge me for a cup of tea? But you don't see me, and I'm special, and oh, screw you, and so we're back as children, right?
Yeah.
So how I hear it is what you've done, which is so beautiful, and it's what we teach. I have a program, Self Mastery, so it's what we're doing in some of the programs as well. Is you know, cultivate really your own parent that says, hang on a minute, what do we need to do here to come back to love and connection? Because we lost connection because suddenly they're the bully at school, or they're the teacher that didn't care that we were whatever, you know.
You hit the nail on the head right now, Poppy. That is amazing what you just said about being the parent, because I do this inner child meditation with all the audiences that I work with, and I just absolutely love it because I've done it with myself many times. And what I do is I get the audience when in the middle of this process, I get them to absolve their parents of the responsibility of being their loving parent, because all of us as kids, when we were 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., there were things that we wanted to hear from our parents that we didn't hear.
Exactly.
And we are still throwing our toys out of the cot because of that now as adults, unconsciously and emotionally. We don't even realize that's what's driving us, triggering us. And so I get the audience to absolve their parents of that responsibility and to adopt that responsibility themselves to be their own loving parent. Because then when you can do that, really what it does is just very liberating. It's very, very powerful. But you said it, you hit the nail on the head. It's about, you know, it's if we can do that, if we can actually parent ourselves, you know, and just it's very, very powerful.
Absolutely. And this for me is forgiveness, is letting go of the hope and the demand really that it should have been different. And so every time we meet a new person that triggers the old, it reminds us it should have been different back then, and we're back into the trauma stuff. As opposed to, you know, my parents screwed up in a big way in many regards, and they were just glorious in another way, and I would choose them again in a heartbeat. But they gave me the best of them. Fantastic.
Of course. And you are who you are because of that experience. You know, you have to develop certain strengths, you know, because in the absence of whatever you felt was missing, you have to develop certain strengths, you know, and we all have to, you know. And a lot of people say again.
Well, I was going to say, so they couldn't have done it better, really.
No, they were doing the best they could with the resources they had at the time.
Exactly. And
they didn't have the resources we have now.
Yeah. So if whatever it was that triggered you and got you angry and, you know, defensive and feisty and strong and defiant and fiercely independent and all, I'm sure that's what drives your life force on stage. When, you know, I was very moved. I messaged Allan when I saw your video of Mark. We all know, because I did lives, which is why we have the group This Is For Me and For You Now, is I was going into depression, and I saw you and went, oh my word. And it was the connection that moved me. And that's what depression is, right? It's not feeling, it's just suppression of feeling.
I remember when you reached out to me, and I was walking around Royal Windsor Park that day, and it was it was beautiful just to hear from you, you know, and it was great to hear from you. And we exchanged a couple of voice messages. Yeah. And I remember that was the day that I found out that my friend had been killed. Yeah. And it was I remember that day very clearly. We live in a world right now where we can't wait for someone else to do it. No, we have to do it ourselves. You know, we have to do it. And everyone listening to this live, and I say the same to every audience, you know, I always ask the question, and most people, 99% of people have got, oops, I dropped the phone, sorry.
Welcome to the human race, as we say.
99.9% of people, they have got incomplete issues with their parents, you know, one or both. And so, and a lot of people find it difficult to forgive their parents for something, but it's because they haven't put themselves in their shoes, you know. It's much easier when you put yourself in someone else's shoes, because then you can understand it from their perspective. And when you have understanding, you don't need forgiveness. At the level of understanding, forgiveness isn't necessary, and that can be quite difficult for some people to swallow, but it's very, very accurate. It's like Mandela put himself in his jailer's shoes, and hence he was able to do what he did. That's why there's only one Nelson Mandela, there's only one Mahatma Gandhi, there's only one Gautama Buddha, there's only one Martin Luther King, there's only one Tony Robbins, there's only one Jesus Christ, because these people, they transcended their own ego, and saw it from the other person's point of view, which allowed them to transcend forgiveness. And when you have understanding, it's easy to love somebody and forgive them, right? It's just easy because you understand why they're doing what they've done, because you know that they've had their own journey, they've gone through their own problems. And all of our parents have had that. All of our parents have been raised by their parents, who were raised by their parents, etc. And they've been passing down this same psychological bullshit for generations. People on this call, everyone in our industry, people that in our network, you and I are connected to some amazing people. And it's up to us individually and collectively to stand up and say, you know what, I'm going to break the cycle. I'm going to set a new standard for the way I operate. And I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be loving. I'm going to put myself in other people's shoes. I'm going to take time to connect with people. Just individually. Tonight I stopped at Marks and Spencer. And when I always talk to the tellers. I always ask them, if I can see their name on their badge, I'll use their name. And I ask them how they're doing. And we have a chat. She asked me. She said, "Are you from South Africa? Where are you from?" She got family in South Africa. We had this little chat. It was a great interaction. When I left, she was smiling. I was smiling. It doesn't take too much time to do that. But people are so in their heads, they don't realize how powerful that is. For themselves and the person they're doing it with. It's a selfish thing, actually. You do it for selfish reasons. You do it because it makes you feel good. But you can't not feel good without making the other person feel good.
This ultimately, as I see it, we're just selfish, period. So we can be selfish in a ego, me, I'm important and you're not, or I'm not and you are, or we're both important, me. That's ultimately, we're never going to get away from the fact it's all about us. And I think it goes in the forgiveness piece. I think what's very important when we role reverse, essentially, or when we look at it from another person's point of view, is to hold on. I'm thinking of a balloon. A client I used to have, she used to talk, we were doing the child work, and she said, "I'm holding my balloon, Poppy," where essentially we hold on still to ourselves as we look from the other person's point of view. So we can be compassionate, to understand, to say, good Lord, if Dad's aggressive, that's all he knew. He knew to fight his corner as a puppy because Father was aggressive or whatever. That doesn't mean it was okay.
No.
But I can see from his, and we can hold both points, because I think this is what a lot of very empathic, kind, perceptive people do, is they can see it from the other point of view, and then they drop themselves. Therefore, I don't have a right to be hurt or angered. But we can hold both, and I think that's really powerfully important, to be able to see without threat that then I have to drop me and only see you.
Yes.
I think that's like emotional blackmail when we say, "But my mother was abused." Okay, equally, it had an impact. However, I can see more if I am more, my heart's more open, I suppose is what I mean.
Yeah, true. And what you said is accurate. It doesn't make it okay. But what it does what it allows you to do is separate the behavior from the person, because the person is not the behavior. And the behavior is not the person. They're two different things, and we forget that, because we think that the behavior is the person and vice versa. And it's important to remember that with all people. It's the same with children. When we children, the way we treat children and scold them, etc., and that's when that's the first 6-7 years of your life. That's when you actually developing a child's psychology. That's when you're developing their belief system. You're helping them to form their decision-making process. That's when they're placing emphasis on avoiding pain or avoiding, avoidance, etc. Or, and that's so important those first few years. But what we do is we forget that children are not the behavior. And what we do is we treat them as one. And it's so important to remember that.
Yes. And we're the same. We're not our behavior. We're not our symptoms. We're not our mood. It becomes over time, of course, our personality. Like the longer we do something, it becomes a personality trait. But as you've shown, we can change dramatically, radically, sustainably so, our personality. Whereas, I won't talk for you, but I know in me, I was a bit of a rageaholic internally. You know, my mum used to say, "You're brutal, just like ... someone else we know." And that became part of me, and I moved through it. And so many of us do, through reflection and being around beautiful, kind people, and everything you're telling us to shift our mindset of what do we want the focus to be? What do we want to eat on, digest, and immerse ourselves in?
Yes.
So grateful
and you know,
that you're here with us.
Coming back to what you were saying just now about being selfish, you know, one thing I dawned on me, you know.
I'm just going to pause you, Alan, just a second. My alarm is going to go off now. Let me pause us quickly, turn it off, and then it doesn't interrupt us. So bear with me a second,
cool.
okay? I don't want to interrupt you otherwise. Go for it. Sorry, pardon me.
No, I was saying that it dawned on me once that when we talk about being selfish in that, and really what, you know, there's so many different ways to look at something, you know, and we can look at selfish in a negative way and a positive way, like you've just highlighted now. But also there's another way. If you think about it, you've had this experience yourself, and I've had it myself, and everyone on this call's had it, is that when you are truly connected to another human being, there's no separation between you. Kind of feel like you won, right? And you can, and it could be with a friend, or it could be with a lover or a spouse or a child or whatever. But when you truly are present and connected, you know, it feels like there's no separation. And so really that's the ultimate of being selfish, right? Because really it's about putting the self first, and the self, there's only one self, right? It's you and I are the same self, and we're all the same self. So when we talk about being selfish, it's about really, you know, understanding that the self is really the highest. It's the only thing there is. It's about being in touch with the self, you know, and really understanding that there is only one self, really. And that's why it's important for us to really be able to understand each other and be able to connect with each other and really respect each other and love each other and be kind to each other. It doesn't matter what side of the border we're sitting on, you know, or which God we pray to, and all this kind of crap, that all these rules that have been established, you know, and all these superstitions that have been carried through thousands of years, you know, that are still causing people so much pain and suffering. And most of that is such utter bullshit, right? All it does is it separates people, and it gets people to kill each other, gets people to kill families, kill their own families, you know, kill children, you know, just in the name of what? In the name of what? A belief, you know, a belief, an idea that became, you know, an institution, you know. I wrote something today on Facebook. I was just, you know, thinking about, last night I sat here and I watched Finding Joe, right, which is about Joseph Campbell's philosophy, and you know, the hero's journey that he wrote about, and was talking to a number of different people. Deepak Chopra was one of them. You know, Gay Hendricks was one of them. A lot of these great people, many of whom I've met, actually lovely people. And they were talking about, you know, the hero's journey and what it means and what Joseph Campbell was trying to get across in his philosophy. And then I was contemplating that today, and I wrote a post that just came out. I wrote it, and it was around this subject, you know, is that we, you know, what really prevents us from being authentic and connected to each other is we got all these rules and all these bloody, you know, superstitions and all these bloody, you know, these conditioned responses, the conditioned paradigms that keep us in a place of fear, you know, in a conditioned state of being, that prevent us from really just seeing each other properly, you know, really seeing each other properly as the same, you know. We all have this, we all are connected all the time to source. We're all connected. We all have this divine connection going on all the time. It's within us all the time. The kingdom that we're all looking for is within us and all around us all the time, right here, right now. We just got to wake up and see it, wake up and realize it. And then it changes everything. It changes everything, you know?
And I believe it is so much more, it's there, and we really can step into it when we step into the oneness, which is about, I mean, I'm not saying I've worked all of this out, Alan. I'm still working, you know, it's crazy stuff. But if I think about, you know, us embracing, accepting parts of us we become one, right? We become integrated. We become this authentic thing that we're all talking about is a good thing. And then people cease to be so scary or angry making or stupid or threatening or whatever. And you know, an example for me was when I was at university, there was a girl, and I thought, why is it I hate on her? I was trying to work it out, and she would, you know, put her hand up or comment, and I'd think, you know, hell, it's other people kind of thing. And I thought, you know, the reason I don't like her is because she has the courage to do the stuff I don't. She would ask, hang on, could you say that again? Because I'm not quite with you. Or I didn't have the courage to do that. I would be there doing the pretend, yeah, I understand it. I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about most of the time. But she was ballsy, and she'd be like, could you say it again? And so there was this kind of vulnerability in her and sort of clumsiness in her that I disowned because I was perfect, right? So I'd hate it in her and cut it off and then go conveniently, oh, she doesn't, you know. And I wouldn't pretend that I knew, but I wouldn't say that I didn't. Well, so I would pretend that I knew, you know. And I thought, good for her, because she's the balls in me that I don't own. So how about owning it? And she was my hero, essentially, but I hated her. So in the oneness of me going, okay, then I'll allow her to be my teacher that I'm grateful for, as opposed to my teacher that I hate on. And then she's not threatening to me anymore. Because whenever she used to speak, I'd be like, you know, want to take her out and ignore her and punish her for being the part of me that I don't accept.
Yes.
So of course, people now who say, I don't get it or whatever, so long as we do it as we can with as much grace as possible, than to shame somebody because we don't get it. Those people don't threaten me anymore, whereas they really did when I was at that period. So the oneness within the self, suddenly then other people don't threaten us so much because we're not resisting that part of us, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense to me. I was trained to think everything was a threat when I was a kid in South Africa. I lived right next door to a police station for the first 6 years of my life. I used to watch black people getting whipped to death by policemen. I didn't tell anyone about it because I thought I'd get into trouble. You know, I grew up in a very racist environment. I went to the army as a soldier. I was told all kinds of propaganda, you know, and I was sent to Angola to war. And so everything was a threat to me, you know what I mean? I was like primed. I was primed to react to that.
Yeah.
And then I came to England, and then I still felt threatened because I thought, well, what happens if people find out what I've done, you know, and who I was in South Africa? And so I couldn't talk about that because there was a lot of anti-apartheid sentiment going on here in the early 90s when I arrived. And I didn't get much flack for it. I mean, I must say that I didn't really get a lot of flack for that, but there was that going on. I did have that occasionally. But I think, you know, use the word threaten. And I think for me, that's probably that's the most obvious shift in my life, is that nothing threatens me anymore. Nothing.
Yeah.
I'm threatened by nothing, you know. You know, it's just, I mean, I haven't really quite thought about it like that until this moment, until you started using the word threaten. But it's true. I mean, I'm not, you know, there was a time when men threatened me, you know, other men threatened me because I was trained like that. And, you know, and they threatened me for all kinds of different reasons. You know, if they were big and strong, you know, it was threatening physically. If they were good looking, it was threatening, you know, aesthetically. There was all kinds of threats going on in my head. And so now, you know, now nothing threatens me, you know what I mean? It's like, because, and I think, you know, I really encourage everyone on this call, whoever listens to this call going forward, is that, you know, the most important work we can do is the spiritual work on ourselves, because like you said, it's really about looking at other people and asking ourselves, why do we feel so pissed off about that, what that person's doing? What in that person am I resisting in myself, or am I not accepting in myself, or what do I need to heal in myself, you know, that's being triggered in me by that person? Because that's what it is, the spiritual aspect of life. And it's, you know, it's becoming more and more important in the world we're living in right now, the spiritual aspect of life. Spiritual development is personal development, but it's personal development at a deeper level. You know, it's spiritual development. And you can't get away from it, whether you like it or not. You can resist it all your life, but eventually what's going to happen is it's going to get you at some point, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's, and and the faster you just, the faster you wake up to it and start investigating and reading about it and asking yourself the deeper questions, the much better it's going to be for you, because it's really what you said about the oneness thing. For me, I'm also, I'm always reading and trying to work it out myself, and I'm a deep thinker. But for me, the greatest realization I've had, I think, for me, is that when I stop resisting, the moment I stopped resisting, and now I'm practicing non-resistance all the time, non-resistance. So zero complaining,
Embracing.
zero judgment, zero resistance. And when you're not resisting, then there is nothing to resist, right? Because then all you see is like, you don't even see. It's not about seeing anything. It's just like you love whatever shows up.
Exactly. There's only
whatever shows up. Whatever shows up is cool. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's all good. Whether you like it or not, it's all right, because you know that it's what shows up. What shows up. You just move through it. You move through it with grace, with ease, right? And that's really what I think Joseph Campbell and everyone else was trying to tell us. Rumi and all these people, they were trying to tell us that, what, there is nothing to resist. You know what I mean? Other than our own ego, or other than this